here on this mutable and ignorant earth, who is the lover and who is the friend? Now she is coming to she is coming to the human brass tacks. You are saying this boy is my lover, but today you are saying that tomorrow somebody else is there, this will go away. What is there? There is no permanence at all in life, you see. Who is the lover and who is the friend? There is none. This is only by chance they have met here, come together, and you say that he is my lover, this thing, that thing is a nonsense. Here on this beautiful and ignorant earth, well, that is the condition of the earth. That is the state in which we live, beautiful and ignorant. Keeps on changing all the while, constantly. Nothing is permanent, you see. Who is the lover and who is the friend? All passes here. Nothing remains the same. Nothing is immutable. None is for any on this transient globe. What a cruel statement she is making, you see. But it's a fact of life also as we live, you see. None is for any on this transient globe. This is a transient. So she is talking of this world, beautiful world, and transient globe, and ignorant world, and all that thing. He whom thou lovest now, a stranger came, and into a fast strangeness shall depart.
What does she mean? None is for any of this transient.
And none is for any of this transient globe.
What does it mean? None is for any.
You think he is my friend, he is my best man, he is my helper, etc. None is there for anybody. We talk our dearest, our closest, our fondest, and we think that they will help us, but there is no hope, there is no guarantee that it will happen. There is no guarantee that it will happen. None is for any. It's a very cruel statement she is making, but it's a fact of life also. When the moment of truth arrives in the life of a person, he whom thou lovest now, she says now, until now, till yesterday, till last year, you had never met him, you never thought of him, all that, and now you are thinking so greatly about him. A stranger came, he has come from nowhere, and if you forget tomorrow, you will also disappear as a stranger elsewhere. Finished. There's a life here. And into a fast train they shall depart. So you forget about this boy, marry somebody else, you will forget this person already. See. His moments part once done upon life's stage, which for a time was given him from within. Yes, you have seen him from within, but that was only a short moment, a small part on the stage of life. To other scenes he moves and other players and laughs and weeps with faces new, unknown. Well, this is what happens. Today you are here, tomorrow you meet some other friend. Next day you go to some other country and meet other companions and all that. It keeps on constantly happening all the while. It keeps on constantly. Laughs and weeps. Today you are in merry company of somebody and you cry, you share his emotions, everything all the while, and again disappear. Now this phrase I had told you a number of times, laughs and weeps, it is for the pilgrim's progress. From the pilgrim's progress. John Bunyan. Now I have counted, it appears 3 times in Savitri. You can make a note of it. One is of course 106.72 here. The other occurrence is 126.5. This in us laughs and weeps. The very first line. Suffers the stroke. Now, of course, this in us, this stands for the soul within. It is he who loves and weeps in this context. And the third occurrence is 146.44. He wallows in mud, yet heavenward soars in thought. He plays and ponders, loves and weaves and dreams. So Sri Aurobindo has added one more noun there, one more verb there. He loves and weaves and dreams. Now let us go back to the earlier sentence here. O child, in the magnificence of thy soul, dwelling on the border of a greater world, Savitri's mother has recognized something already in her on a greater world, and dazzled with the superhuman thoughts. You are dazzled with the superhuman thoughts. Thou lends eternity to a mortal hour. This is what she says here. Now, dwelling on the border of a greater world and dazzled with the superhuman thoughts. You remove these two commas. Dwelling on the border of a greater world and dazzled by the superhuman thoughts. It will become one like that, you see. Now, that is what you have in the revised edition of Savitri. These two commas are not there. Yeah. Well, this is also kind of one sentence only, but this dazzled by the superhuman thought is a subclause. She is dazzled by the superhuman thought. She is dwelling on a border of a greater world and is dazzled by superhuman. And therefore she lends eternity to a mortal lover. See, the nuances change. I would say without the commas, it looks a little kind of prosaic, the qualification. The force with which it comes with the commas, dazzled by the superhuman thought, the impact which it makes, that gets lost in the absence of the commas. Yeah. It really makes full thrust. The full power is given to the dazzled by the superhuman thought. So these commas are quite, I mean, they are not meaningless commas. They change the whole quality, you see.
Why did they leave them out?
Huh?
Why did they leave them out?
They are not given any reason.
No reason.
No.
But they are there in the original.
This was published first in the Sri Aurobindo Path Mandir Annual in 1946 or something like that. This one with the commas. In the original 1950 edition, the commas are there. They 51, 54, 72 also the commas. Only in the 1993 edition, these commas are missing. They are removed the commas in the revised edition of Savitri.
But why? What reason?
No reason is given. See, they will say this thing that we don't have access to the manuscript, we can't judge, We don't have any access to the manuscript, you see. Huh? We don't have access.
Oh, but the people who are publishing, they have access, no?
Yeah, but then they should give reason.
Yeah.
They should give reason. You see, but they are not given any reason anywhere. Unless perhaps somebody asks and they are forced to give the reason.
But at some stage, I thought there was a whole volume that they published, all the reasoning of every change.
It is not there. No. Otherwise, they are not.
Did you ask?
They would drive you out. No. See, they will give evasive answer. Yes, it is there somewhere like that, you see. Yeah. But then, unless all the documents are available and all that to our satisfaction, there are many cases like that. I had asked on some occasions, but no direct answer came out. Evasive answers and like that, you see. Then I stopped asking.
No straight answer.
Yeah, no. But this, to my mind, has a certain force, and that force should not get lost by removing those commas. I think the whole thing needs another look. Otherwise, come out with all the facts.
Exactly,
Yeah,
there must be a reason or
yeah, exactly. In moments part once His moments part once done upon live stage, which for a time was given him from within, to other scenes he moves and other players, and laughs and beeps with faces new and known. And then she continued, the body thou hast loved is cast away. Now this is a very, very cruel description of the body. Yeah, you are loving this physical appearance, physical body of a person. The body thou lovest is cast away. What happens after death? It is thrown away, discarded, eaten by all kind of thing. It goes back to the elements. The body thou hast loved is cast away amid the brute, unchanging stuff of worlds. It goes into its elements. Body. To indifferent, mighty nature and becomes crude matter for the joy of others' lives. You see, it's a very, very crude description of the physical, you see, of the body. You see. This is the traditional fate of the body. Traditional fate of the body. It is abundant. It becomes a food for others now. The body thou hast loved is cast away amid the brute, unchanging stuff of worlds to indifferent mighty nature. Mighty nature doesn't care. She is concerned only with the elements and becomes crude matter for the joy of others' lives. But for our souls upon the wheel of God, forever turning, they arrive and go, married and sundered in the magic round of the great dancer of the boundless dance. So it keeps on repeating. The great dancer of Shiva, who we call it, the destroyer, keeps on happening. Our emotions are but high and dying notes. Yeah, as long as they are vital, they have to be of that nature, high and dying notes. That is the very character of vital. The very character of vital. Of his wild music changed compellingly by the passionate movements of a seeking heart in the incessant links of hour with hour. To call down heaven's distant answering song, to cry to an unseen bliss is all we dare. That is all we can do. We can never win that. We can never have that thing. We can just call, invoke, cry, unceased bliss, but it doesn't come to us. Once seized, we lose the heavenly music's sense. That's the pity. Even if we call down that music and if we manage to get it, it ceases to be heavenly. It becomes human. Too near, the rhythmic cry has fled or failed. All sweetnesses are baffling symbols here. Love dies before the lover in our breast. That is the pity. Love dies before the lover in our breast. Our joys are perfumes in a brittle vase. So the vase will break and the joys also will disappear. It seems in that thing. Now, love dies before the lover in our breast. There is a poem by Shelley. I will read it later on. Oh, then what wreck it is upon time's sea. This is what happens. We are sailing on the turbulent waters and it is a shipwreck, and it is the shipwreck that you are seeing here. Oh then what wreck it is upon time's sea to spread life's sails to the hurricane desire. Your desire is a passionate desire. It is that hurricane which is driving your boat, your sail. And call for pilot, the unseeing heart. And who is the pilot? Your heart which does not see. It has become blind. It has become blind because of love, because of passion, because of desire. He is the pilot of your heart. He is the pilot of your boat. And you are driving through the hurricane. What else will happen if not wreck? This is what you are going to meet here. O child, wilt thou proclaim? Wilt thou then follow again the law that is eternal will? The autarky of the rash titans moved, to whom his own fierce will is the one law. In a world where truth is not, nor light, nor God. Now she is again becoming really violent. She is summoning great arguments. Oh child, you are a small little girl, you have not seen the world at all. You have not seen the conflicts of life. You have no knowledge of things, no experience of life at all. And you are proclaiming something which is beyond comprehension, beyond human understanding. Will thou proclaim? Will thou then follow against the law? This is the law of nature here. This is the thing by which things happen here. And you want to proclaim something against the law, you want to break the law. You are too human for that kind of a thing. Because she says, I know how to deal with fate. I know how to die. She's talking like that. Against that, you want to break the law. Against the law, you want to go. That is the eternal will, the autarky of the rash titans moved, the sovereign rule, authority. What I am saying, that is all. Nothing to change in that. Self-decision, governance. I am the king. I am. Whose Titan's mood? So you are driven by the Titan mood and you are not in a position to think anything else at all now. To whom his own fierce will is the one law. That is for the Titan. For the Titan, his fierce will is his own law. Yes, what I do is all. In fact, that is the description of the autark. In a world where truth is not, because we are not really living in the world of truth. There is no light, there is no God, and it is a Titan's world. In a world where truth is not, nor light, nor God, only the gods can speak what thou speakest, what thou now speakest. Now, she is a cultured lady also. She knows what the gods speak and what the man speaks. What you have been saying all along, that I know how to die, etc., all that, is only the gods who can speak. In other words, she does not see really the divinity in Savitri. She is not aware of it yet. See. Thou who art human, that is what Savitri's mother says, sees her in her. Think not like a god. Think not like a god. You are a human. And go by human standards, human passion, human relationships, human circumstances. Accept the law of humanity. That is the surest, safest way for you to live here. In other words, you do your proper human yoga. Accept proper human life and follow the human tradition, human approach. That is the human yoga. You go by that. You are not a god at all. Thou who art human, think not like a god. For man, below the god. Yes, God is above and below is the brute. And in between the brute and God is man. Between the animal and God is man. For man, below the God, above the brute, is given the calm reason as his guide. That is his specific character. That is his svabhava. That is the thing which will make his life reasonable, happy, acceptable. Reason, you go by reason, don't go by passion. You are not God, you are not a brute. He is not driven by an unthinking will. Savitri, you better think under the circumstances and don't get driven by an unthinking will. As are the actions of the bird and beast. That is what happens in the case of the bird and beast. They are driven by no thinking will at all. She is giving the example of the fruit. As are the actions of the bird and beast. He is not moved by stark necessity. Weight may be there, maybe other things are there, like the senseless motion of inconscient things. You are a reasonable creature, reasoning creature. You apply reason. And then she says further, the giants and the titans, a furious march, climbs to usurp the kingdom of the gods. Yes, this is what the giants and the titans will do. They would invade the kingdom of God, to capture the kingdom of God. Giant and titan. And of course, later on we have got demon. Giant, titan, demon. Demon, Pishacha. Giant, Rakshasa. Titan, Asura. We have got these three words, giant, titan and demon, Pishacha, Rakshasa, Asura, in that little book, The Mother. Yeah, yeah, that little book, she says, the Mother. You are driven by that, you see. The giants and the titans, the furious mass climbs. What do? Giants and Pishacha, they want to go and capture the throne of God, or scourge the demon magnitudes of hell in the undefeating passion of their hearts. They don't think, they don't reflect at all. And you are lending yourself to them. You are not really lending to God, you are lending to them, to giant, to titan, to demon. In the undefeating passion of their hand, they dash their lives against the eternal law and fall and break by their own violent mass. The middle path is made for the thinking man. So this is the sane advice of Savitri's mother. You are a human, you follow the human path. Don't follow the path of the gods, don't follow the path of the titans. Follow the path. What is the middle path? The middle path is reason. Reason. You follow the human path, reason.